Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background about myself. So I first learned about velocity banking in 2017 from a educational company called Renatus. And they have this whole educational curriculum. Velocity banking was one of the classes, but they have like tax and legal, real estate red flags, creative acquisitions. They got the whole shebang. And back then I was just really desperate because I was making $20,000 a year, and I purchased the course to learn about velocity banking. So you kind of say, "Oh, I paid $2,000 to learn about velocity banking," and even though, like, I'll be honest, it took me about 8 to 9 months of me just reviewing that course over and over again, uh, because I didn't understand what was going on. I'm going to be honest with you. I had no idea what a line of credit was. I had no idea how amortized mortgages worked. You know, like I had no idea about anything. And to be honest, the strategy seemed so simple that in a way, I kind of felt like I got scammed, right? But because what is the strategy? It's you put your paycheck into line of credit, expenses out, rinse and repeat over and over again. And I don't know if you ever heard the saying, if you don't pay, you pay attention. So if somebody had just taught me the strategy for free, like even on a YouTube video, I don't think I would have taken it that seriously compared to me shelling out $2,000 and then studying it for like eight months, and trying to get like what's the big deal about this strategy, right? And I'm gonna kind of go over my opinion and reasons why most people, even if it teach it to them, and see, here's the thing, people are like, don't you care if you teach the strategy for free or not? No, because people who don't pay attention. Now, again, I know there's going to be some exceptions, but in general, people who don't pay, they don't pay attention. So, what are some of the reasons why most people won't do velocity banking? Why is it that I did it? Well, like I said before, I paid 2 grand, and if I'm going to pay 2 grand for something, I better get my money's worth. So I learned velocity banking in and out, right? Number two, and which I'll go over, is that society conditions you to have savings, right? So, who's one of the most popular finance guru in the US? It's Dave Ramsey. And, he says save money, right? Everybody needs 3 to 6 months of some savings. He has a article, How to Save Money. And Dave loves saving money, 30 ways to save up to $1,000 fast. So it's not just Dave, but it's everywhere in our culture. Let's just go Reddit. How much should I have in savings, right? Let's see what we get here. So maybe 20% of your income. The fact that people have this ask these types of questions is a little bit different from what we're talking about here in velocity banking, right? So the society conditions us. We need savings. Second one, societal condition for making minimum payments, right? So the way that I think of a loan is a forced minimum payment, right? So people always try to say, oh, lines of credit have different calculations of interest to loans. They're pretty much the same, right? The only difference, I mean, think about a credit card. A credit card, if you just paid the minimum monthly payment, you could kind of foresee how that would accrue so much interest because you got to pay a little bit more than a minimum, right? Same thing with the mortgage. But the reason why people don't pay more than the minimum is because a loan is a one-way street. And so if they do ever pay the loan more than the minimum and they don't calculate to the exact T how much they actually had left over, they're going to have cash flow issues, right? They're going to have cash flow issues. So these two things, right, contributes to why most people will do it. And the last reason that I'm pretty sure the vast majority of people won't do is because it's too simple. Like I know a lot of you are asking me like, oh, can I have this velocity banking spreadsheet? That spreadsheet, I just came up like out of the top of my head, and really, it's not like anything special, right? It's just a budget. That's literally what it is. It's just a budget. If you can write a budget, congratulations, you did a velocity banking spreadsheet. You all make it a big deal more than I thought you ever would. And so whenever you like ask me, can I have the spreadsheet? I just kind of ignore it because I want you to do it yourself, and you'll actually gain my respect if you actually try to do it yourself rather than uh, asking me to send you this. So, so let me go back here again. The reason why most people won't do it is just because it's way too simple. I mean, instead of having savings, you just put your paycheck into line of credit and expenses out, and that's pretty much it. And I paid $2,000 to learn it. But again, I paid $2,000 to potentially save $100,000. So I feel like it was well worth the investment. And the best part is, I did it before everybody else even knew about the strategy, right? So let's just go here. Let's just kind of compare our velocity banking spreadsheet step by step of what we mean by our social conditioning and how it affects our budget. So if we take a look here, if someone had about $1,000 of savings, they would be applauded, especially by the Dave Ramsey crowd, and I have nothing against Dave, about, oh my goodness, $1,000. If you save up $1,000, that's like baby step one. Dave would never approve of going from $1,000 of savings to zero, right? Like, but that's what we're essentially talking about in the velocity banking concept. Number two, social conditioning for making minimum payments. So let me talk about this with respect to both a HELOC and a mortgage. So when it comes to a HELOC, right, most people don't understand that many HELOCs have interest only payments, right? And so what does that mean? It means that let's say you borrow $20,000 and you pay interest only, every payment you make doesn't make that $20,000 go down. So I think once upon a time, my dad had a HELOC, and there was an interest only payment, and then he told me something like he hated HELOCs because the balance never seems to go down, and he couldn't understand why. And this is a man with $1 million house, literally, because he got lucky at the right time. Nothing against him, but sometimes you just buy real estate at the right time, and then your $200,000 house or $280,000 house becomes $1 million house. Now, let's go here. So we're not just going to make the minimum payments or interest only payments. Same thing with the mortgage. Why do net people never pay more than the monthly payment, which you could kind of think is a minimum payment, because it eats up to our cash flow. And so now we have this idea that paying or spending all of your cash for the month to debt is going to eat up our cash flow, which it's not if we use lines of credit the appropriate way. So let's just kind of go over a quick review of velocity banking. So all velocity banking is a debt payoff strategy using lines of credit as your main tool. You only need two things. And you know what? I am almost so sick of this because I've done this almost like 400 times. And that's how you know you get so good at it. You know what I mean? Like, you do this so many times and it becomes so natural. Kind of like you're speaking your native language, right? I could speak English all day, every day, and I could kind of get sick of it. Well, it's at least not going to be a novelty just because you do it every single day. And I do velocity banking spreadsheets every single day. And that's how I know I'm good at this. Now, number one, we need a budget because our budget is essentially our attack plan, and our attack plan is to get rid of all of these debts, right? It's a debt payoff strategy. If you don't have debt, you don't need to do velocity banking. If you have $5,000 of income and $5,000 of expenses and no debt, velocity banking isn't going to help you. Okay, number two is we need a line of credit as an operating account. Now, luckily for this person, he or she has a $20,000 home equity line of credit. Think of it as like a credit card based on the value of your home. If we do things based on the average American way, where we just kind of pay, let's say, these minimums and put the rest in savings, we're going to lose out, right? We're going to lose out because, our savings account is probably going to get 4% at most if you get those high yield savings account. But then if we have it in savings and then we have a credit card interest at 29, 27, HELOC at 10, right? And then, a mortgage that's still higher than 4%, we're just losing out by having savings. So let's make sure that we dump all of our savings into our debts. Okay? So let's just go ahead and do this. We're going to get the same income, and what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our line of credit is our main operating account, And this is true in any velocity banking strategy. You know what happens when you make a line of credit your main operating account? The payment goes to zero. See, that's what we got to remember. Line of credit as our main operating account, this goes to zero. Savings goes to zero. Income, we assume the same, right? So because this is so simple, most of the masses can't handle it, right? Actually, let me do this. Because it's just paycheck into line of credit, expenses out, right? And then our balance will go down by our cash flow. You see how our cash flow just magically increased by making this line of credit our main operating account? So, average American, main operating account is checking account. Velocity Banking, main operating account is a line of credit. So if you take a look here, again, we have to beat two layers of social conditioning in order for the masses to actually do velocity banking, which is the desire for having savings, and number two, feeling uncomfortable making more than the minimum payment in any sort of loan or credit card or line of credit, right? So let's just go ahead and do this, do another demonstration. Oh my goodness, so easy. So let's say there's a $20,000 balance on our line of credit with the $20,000 limit. And then what are we going to do? We're going to decrease our line of credit or a balance by the cash flow, because what are we going to do? We're going to put the entire paycheck into line of credit, which satisfies the minimum monthly payment. You take your expenses out, and then after every single month, it goes down by 1,500, right? So let's go ahead and do this. Calculate the next month's balance plus the previous month's balance minus our cash flow, 1535.83. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the average daily balance, multiply it by the interest rate, which is 0.1, and then divide by 12 to get the monthly interest. And then we just kind of rinse and repeat. Next month, paycheck in, expenses out. Next month, paycheck in, expenses out. So it's always going to go down by our cash flow. And here's the cool thing, right? Now, once we have enough space, I would just probably, and, in real life, I might do this a little bit differently, where after every single month, this is $20,000, but I'm constantly moving this high interest credit card debt into that line of credit. But let's just go in here. So let's just kind of make this easier to demonstrate for you know the video. But after how many months is this? 5 months. This is probably not going to be seven. Well, this is definitely not going to be $7,000. It's gonna the balance is gonna have gone down. I don't know by how much, to be honest. I haven't checked. But let's just assume, just to kind of get the idea, that we're just going to assume that 7,000 or transfer that $7,000 plus 7,000, right? Because what happens if we transfer that 7,000? Well, guess what? Oh my goodness, this goes to zero, and our cash flow has increased, right? Because the whole point of velocity banking is to increase this cash flow number. It's like taking a calculus class. I don't know if you took a calculus class, but they always say, like, hey, you got to take the derivative of whatever, and that's because you're going to find the maximum number to do whatever, right? The max. That's the whole point of calculus, to find the min or a max, and we want to maximize this cash flow, right? That's what we want to do. And we just keep going and over again. So let's go ahead and do this and just copy. Whoopsie, I got to copy that cash flow. New cash flow. So 1,775. Okay. And then keep going, right? And I think this would be fine. And so, well, let's just do it one more time. So now, at this stage, it's not going to be 10K, but I'm too lazy to calculate what the actual current balance is. So let's put 10K, right? So we'll just hit 10K right here. Plus 10,000. Okay, and again, we're consolidating everything into one line of credit and using that as our main operating account. And then as you can see here, we went from $1,100 of savings to $2,100 of cash flow, right? See how simple that is? Again, we're maximizing the cash flow number, and the actual strategy is you put your entire paycheck into the line of credit, and then you take your expenses out and rinse and repeat over and over again, right? You just rinse and repeat, and then you do it again, and then you subtract by our actual new cash flow, which is 2100, and then let's go ahead and transfer or rinse and repeat, and then we see about probably in 20 months because I overestimated, but we'll just say 22 for all the calculations. All of this line of credit debt. Whoopsie, what am I doing? Why did I color this whole thing red? Let me do this again. So you can see by at least at the most by month 22, this month debt is paid off. So month 22, and that's 37K of debt, right? So now we tackle on the mortgage. So here's the thing. At this point, you have two options. You could put your entire savings into that mortgage. Let's say $2,100. Now, let me ask you this. Out of practicality, will most people actually overpay loans like that? No, because you lose your liquidity. Now, here's the thing. People might say, well, now you can use your credit cards as backup. Now, let's do this. Let's say we had, I don't know, $1,000 or $2,000 emergency, okay? And now you have a payment here. I don't know, what would this be, like a $50 payment? I don't know. We'll just say $50 payment. Now, you're essentially going to split your income into two places. So you are, here's the thing. Most people don't ever do things if it requires too much thinking on their part. So now let's say I have this 2050 in my savings account, right? 2050. Now I have to figure out, okay, how much am I going to pay the credit card versus how much I'm going to pay the mortgage left over. Now, obviously, you would put this whole entire 2000 and then this 50 into the mortgage, but now you're nervous about overpaying the mortgage. And if you don't know what I mean by that, just kind of simulate this through yourself with a loan that you have and how comfortable you feel overpaying the loan. So it doesn't mean that this doesn't work, but what I'm saying is practically most people will never overpay their loans. And this is why banks can send you letters every 5 to 7 years for refinancing because they know that you have a low cash flow, but you have a ton of equity, right? And if you don't know what I mean by that, don't worry. Just ignore everything I said. But the point is that we need an easy way to attack this loan without a thinking too much, right? Without thinking too much, and um, actually without thinking too much. That's kind of like the only benefit that I'm thinking about right now. An easy way to overpay this loan so that we don't pay so much interest and we don't think about it too much. So basically, what I would do, and actually, let's see how many months the balance of the loan is. Loan amortization calculator.net. All right, let's go in here. And 200,000, 36. And then now let's take a look. So after 22 months, what is the balance of the loan? Only 195, people. 195. So look at it. Okay, here's a crazy thing. Look at how much interest you pay compared to the actual loan principal. So if you don't know how mortgages work, basically your payment is split into interest and principal, and interest is essentially the bank's profit, and the principal is the amount that you actually put into paying off the loan if you just pay that monthly payment. And again, think of that monthly payment as the minimum of like a credit card, but you can't ever get your money back, right? But let's go in here. And then, so now an easy way to attack this is basically doing something called chunking. So what you do, so let's say that you're going from 195 to 190, You just transfer 5K of the principal to your line of credit. So let's just do this, plus 5,000, pay it off, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. So you could see that pays off in 2 months. Now, let's take a look at this from this 195 here. How long does it take to go from 195 to 190? It took us 2 months when we're transferring to the line of credit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh my goodness, more than a year, right? So basically, in about 2 months, we destroyed 5K of the principal, right? 5K of the principal without thinking about it, right? And we didn't overpay the loan directly. We did it through the line of credit. And the way that I kind of think of it is that it's almost kind of like a seatbelt, that you just put in your entire paycheck into that line of credit, and it helps you get to the destination safer, right? But some people think it's bunk. But we have actually a velocity banking calculator provided by Renatus, where I first learned this from. And full disclosure, I'm actually make commission off of selling Renatus products because I'm an independent contracting marketer. Now, let me go here. So what I do is now just put in this information, $200,000 original balance. So let's go ahead and do that. Current balance is this 195 right here. And then the interest rate is 6%, 30 years. And what is that payment amount? 1,200. Although it's technically, I don't think it's 1,200. I think it's a 1199.1. And let's just do a chunk amount of 5,000. Line of credit interest rate is 10%. Income is 5,000. And then what is our expenses? 1,700. So it's everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. Oh my goodness, look how long it took us. 6 years. 6 years. And look at all the interest we did not have to pay in this simulation, $172,000. So, most people don't understand interest. And actually, let's just play around with how much we can transfer to the line of credit. So if I do double this, 10,000, I think the amount of interest that we pay will increase a little bit. So let's just go 10,000. Yep, it increases by $1,000. All right. So 5,000, 10,000, it doesn't really matter. Just don't put the whole thing in a line of credit, right? All right. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I put this whole thing in a line of credit, this actually doubles 195,381.96. Let's just take a look. Yep, I'm always right about that. So it doubles. So you want to do this chunking method when you're dealing with a low interest amortized loan and a higher interest rate line of credit. Okay, well, that's it for today. So what do you think? Do you think the masses would ever accept velocity banking? I just think most people won't, because I've been talking about this for since 2017, and all I've got is just a bunch of stares and what are you talking about? And I found this niche in the internet where I could just explain it. But for most people in real life, I don't think they'll ever listen, because people who don't pay, essentially they don't pay attention. You know what I'm saying? All right. Well, have a great day, everybody, and we will speak next time.